Hey, good morning, friends. It's Monday, February sometime, nearly the end, nearly rent day. And yesterday was very interesting at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. The weather was wonderful. I got there early, about 11 o'clock. I made some marks on the sidewalk or the pavement with chalk, reminding people about gravity being a religion and and that Earth is flat. And that was very effective, actually. Quite quickly, people were willing to stop because you know what they say about you have to repeat something a number of times for it to kind of start to kind of drop into the consciousness. And I found yesterday that a lot more people were looking at flat Earth, noticing flat Earth, or NASA. What do I put NASA? Fake space. And okay, NASA fake space, I'll be honest, wasn't catching people's attention as much as the term flat Earth. When I put flat Earth with it, it was like far more. Would catch one person in a group's attention, and they would have an association with it. Oh, people are talking about this, and have a view, hey, and have a view, or want to engage in a conversation. Sometimes interested, sometimes already weaponized. So that was fascinating. So, and I had an interesting time where I got around one of the content over everything cameras. And then they've got a number of cameras on at Speaker's Corner. If you haven't looked at the channel, it's very interesting. But of course, they cover the majority of what goes on there, which is to do with religious and sectarian and geographic issues, differences, and so on. But content over everything, they appear to be a little bit more interested now. That's changed. And they've got a guy called Pavlov. And I say they, that may not be a fair characterization, but they seem to be following. One of their cameras seems to be kind of tagging along with Pavlov. And one of the smartly dressed dudes standing alongside the camera who'd engaged me for quite a while yesterday in conversation about flat Earth, he seemed to be sort of, they seem to be sort of buddying up. So, I think I'd seen Pavlov before on video talking about the ball, or talking about, I'm not sure whether he comes as like I'm just defending the ball, or I'm coming to rubbish flat Earth theory. And he was very keen to tell me what I believed in the flat Earth theory, because he'd done, a few minutes of research, perhaps watched a few Vsauce videos, and decided he understood the way that, the flat Earth proponents think. I think he's even caught up with that flat Earth society nonsense, where, the Earth is apparently rising through a vacuum. I guess a little bit like a plunger in a syringe. Just forget that there's a syringe and a plunger and someone pushing it and so on. Those are all gravity. And Pavlov was interesting because, I knew going in there that I was going to be encountering people who were coming to bat for the ball. Don't know if I've said that before, but for people that are coming in to bat for the ball, and I have to tell you, my friends, that if you don't think flat Earth is making traction, then you might want to think again. I tell you what, after I saw yesterday, my experience in the park, I was only in the park for 4 hours. Credit to Barry and others who were there longer, and to Roxanne for getting there after a long weekend doing those laser tests in Brighton. Well done for that. I think they was, successful. I don't. For me, it's just like a no-brainer. It's just a matter of whether you can get the technology tidy enough, such as to satisfy everybody that that there's no bending and all this sort of stuff that one can introduce. But I know that I can see sufficiently far. And and how you present this stuff to people, that you say, look, water's level and the world record photograph is 200 miles, blah blah blah. How do you explain that? Oh, how do you explain the way that the sun moves and the shadow on the moon? And then this guy Pavlov, if he's the best that they've got, I have to say, it's pretty dire. If you're a ball believer, to kind of have this guy going to me, he says, look out there. So we look, say, just say, left to right. He says, see those planes, they're making short contrails. And see those planes cruising across the sky there. That's they're just going across us here. But those planes that are going to come towards us, do you see how they're lifting up like that? You don't think that that's because they're coming over the ball? They're coming and rising up over the ball in front of us? That's what this guy thinks. So I just simply, I didn't, it was only after I was like, oh my God, that's someone intelligent making a defense of the idea that the planes are flying over and around and under a ball, is that the ones that are coming towards me appear to be rising or lifting up like a rocket, he said. I don't know if I got that on camera, if it was on camera, but that's just, it beggars belief. And then he offers me like a multiple choice question. He says, so the only way that you can explain this is either this or this. Which do you choose? I said, well, neither. There are other ways that this can be explained. Much better ways. I can't remember the point now, but that was the question he was asking me. But anyway, I mean, this guy, content over everything. Obviously, think that this guy has a, he's standing at he's at a high point of their kind of defense, or a defense against, flat Earth theory or anti-ball theory. Because that's what people want. They keep asking me, you're a flat earther? They want you to tick that box so that they can attribute all the labels that must come with it. But for me, I was trying to go in there on a platform of NASA's lying, and the ball doesn't stand up to scrutiny because water is level. Let's try and stick with that. But Pavlov was, and others of course, are constantly throwing, but how come you can see the ship going, the top goes last, that means the bottom's going first, and so on. That you can't explain compression to that mind, even though you go, yes, look at the train coming from a distance. They don't. It's almost like, it's almost like you've just gone and spoken a foreign language, and they have to move on to the next question because they cannot grasp the import of what you just told them. But people are paying attention. There's a lot more people and I had at one point, there is a section of me doing on content over everything. There's a few clips here and there on their site. I think I've seen one of them. It's for me a little hard to watch, so I haven't watched it all, because I was being sort of a bunch of people were kind of having a go. You don't hear it on camera, you don't hear what other people are saying at you when you're doing this, when you're in the pit, as it were. And sometimes it's like, can get a bit febrile, people and they're trying to talk over you, and they turn onto people and starting to kind of say, hey, no, well, this is what this is what la, la, la. Especially is it Alan and one of those other locals that are always there. Oh, I've seen, I was in the Concorde and I've seen it from 60,000 feet, I've seen the curvature, you know, of course it's there, of course it's there. You know, and but you ask them time and again, can you measure it? Can you measure it? Can you measure that curvature? And they just skip past that. And so, and at one point, I ended up delivering a sort of oratory, I suppose you might call it, to a large group. For me, one of my, if not my largest group of people. So it ended up on camera sounding quite loud. I mean, it was loud, and I don't relish that because, as I say, you're kind of talking over people that are heckling you, and they're trying to, in the case of Pavlov, trying to hold you in a conversation of, they don't want to call it straw man, and one might say, oh well, face up to these questions, these are important questions, but I'd say again, it's like the onus, the responsibility for proving these crazy claims of being able to live or exist have water and rivers flow up the underside of a spinning ball that's moving through this vacuum of space. All of these things are science fiction. So that has to be proven first. Let's not get lost in the miasma of the how does it work. People come to me with a how does this work out? Like, those are conversations I'd love to have over coffee with people who already know that the world doesn't work like we were taught, and all things have to be, given head time. And if you've got an agile mind, you should be able to hold those things in your head. Competing as some of these ideas are, I am able to kind of imagine all sorts of possibilities. But I'm mindful not to get drawn into ones that diminish this, us, what we are and who we are, and the import of what we're doing. But people are paying attention. I notice some of the imams over in the Muslim sort of camp, as it were, looking over at us and nodding to each other and chatting and whatnot. And it's flat Earth is on a lot of people's radar now, and that's now. And things are moving fast. So by the end of this year, we what we see by the summer even, it's going to be like interesting possibilities. And I walked through the phalanx of Muslim dudes yesterday, thinking, the only way through this, is together as brothers and sisters. I had a wonderful sister come and stand alongside me at one point. I hope that's caught on the Content Over Everything feed. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Come stand alongside me and kind of give Pavlov and his crew a bit of a barracking and saying, listen, you guys are basically shilling for the system by standing up and fighting against these guys, trying to break down exactly what we know and we don't know. There's so much untruth. There's people willing to accept that certain things might have been, their history has been rewritten, or this history, but not the whole collective. Oh no, it couldn't be possible that all governments are in the same bed. So this is what people struggle to kind of compute, is the grandness of the totality of it. It's as though young Earth arrivees, what do they call us, foundlings perhaps, were all held in a camp 200, 300 years ago. And at some point, the people who held us in that camp released us in pockets onto the plain into these mud-flooded, post-mud-flooded cities and spaces and places. Some found their way into the cities, some stayed in the country, and we were given adopted histories and ideologies of who and what we were. Or maybe there were some local people who were surviving here, but beyond that, we don't really know, because none of it can be verified, really. None of it. Honestly, if you can't grasp that concept, you haven't come deep enough yet. It is the case that we've been given a false history, lock, stock, and barrel. And for some reason, they have done maintained a control net and you know, moving people hither and thither at a whim. For is it for nothing, just to keep people their heart energy ensnared? Grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill, and he marched them down again. When they were up, they were up. When they were down, they were down. When they were halfway up, they were neither up nor down. Sounds like a lot of time wasting, a lot of exploitation of people just for a whim of the grand old Duke of pork. So the only way we're going to get through this is together. But we have been set apart. We have been designed to pit against each other. I see it even in the Christian community. People, while I bring up Christian, people really want to. Oh, so you're Christian, right? If you are a Christian and you're like, oh, what does it mean? It's the same as it's the same as I look at the Muslim guys and I think, you can't take their Islam away from them. How do you do that? How do you do that? And I don't know that you have to. There's a pal Wasim, he's flat earth and very much still the religion is key. And it's an interesting question. I don't know the answer. I'm not saying it should be. You have to leave anything. I don't know, but obviously one wants to aspire to what ideals are. It's about goodness to one and mankind, and so on and so on and so on. So you want to allow for that to be how people are going to be. That they kind of come together as a group and do something and so on. That's what's the harm in that? For me, I guess I think I said this yesterday. Is if people are being lied to though, or it's a means of controlling people in a way that is not as fruitful and as honorable to the spirit of how we came here. I don't really want to cast aspersions, and I want to, because I know what the system would love for us to fight each other, the different groups, and say, oh, flat Earth is okay. Everybody comes to flat Earth, but there's still this group against that group about this nuance and that. That's, I think, how they want to do it. Because it's coming out, and definitely I felt a different energy in Hyde Park this year. Now, I haven't been since the end of December, so it's only 2 months, but this is a new spring, and with it comes a lot more interest. Unfortunately, in the flat Earth, to this stage, it seems as though only a few people have got the courage to kind of come out and actually do something, in the public eye. I come across this a lot. There's a lot of bravado on the keyboard. from the ball boys as well. But here's my little boy. Good morning. Oh, okay. Um, this is what I see is like a lack of courage. There's some people who bat the ball, who come to bat all the time. People like Barry from up north, and Ruben and his family, and of course Roxanne. But there's a few new guys. There was a few newer faces, to be fair. And I met one or two of them yesterday, and Lou was there, of course. But there's on Eco Dave. But there are, unfortunately, very few people, it seems, that have yet found the courage. And I think this is one of the things that people need to step aside. Some guy was asking me, Pavlov, was it Pavlov? So if you've got such important information, why haven't they taken you out? This is the fear playing, This is the Alex Jones. I think someone asked me, "Oh, do you still follow Alex Jones?" This was some guy trying to see whether I hadn't gone deep enough down the rabbit hole to know things like Alex Jones control. That I worked out years ago. But there was a small period of time when I thought Alex Jones was an important truth speaker. So, oh shit, I threw myself there. Sorry, guys. I think I'm encouraging people I'm trying to encourage people to be willing to stand up, I mean, to be willing to be courageous beyond what you've been programmed to do, You don't, as I said yesterday, this is not about trying to incur the wrath of the system in as much as it has all these petty, childish acts and laws to try and encumber your movements and your mind and so on. But really, that's why I stand there with no fear, because I'm not inciting any kind of violence against the system. I'm almost saying there's a recognition that the system is what it is, and it exists because we have had our common sense and our trust in ourselves usurped. We don't trust ourselves anymore, and we fear this power system so much that we cannot stand up and say the truth, lest someone get offended, lest the authorities take note. Well, I'm sure that they're taking note, and if they're taking note, they're noting that I'm saying, don't go stand on Downing Street or wherever the puppets play in your local neighborhood. Don't go stand there. What are you wasting your energy on? This facade, this charade, this horror show that's being wrought out in people's televisions and their minds, such as to keep this thing inflated. And if you go and stand and beat your chest and sticks and stones and all that, then they'll bring their television out and show how crazy you are. As I guess, maybe sometimes they might try and infer with me going on a bit of a rant, or any kind of any sort of flat earth angle where they try and mess with what people are saying and how they're portraying themselves. I'm mindful of that, even though I don't always get it on the button. And I watched a little bit of my content of a thing I did. It was to a pretty large and kind of noisy, a little bit cantankerous group. At about midday, I suppose. I loved it, but as I keep saying, I'm actually really not about trying to beat people over the head with flat earth truth. I'm more about trying to say, listen, the ball that we've been sold doesn't stack up. Go and look at that. If it makes no sense to you, then good luck to you. If it does, then, let's talk, because there's much more you need to know. And if we become those people who know what we need to know, then we can surely do our best for ourselves, our families, our neighborhoods, our people. I won't be long. Okay, okay. I'll finish this up in a sec. Um, so we need to be shit, damn. Yeah, we need to be mindful of that, of not getting drawn into that fight. Oh yes, and to know that actually the way to do the best once we get into our neighborhood is actually the best way to do this is actually all together. So in time, I want to bring those Muslim brothers, Christian brothers into the same kind of fold, and not need to be. Oh, I'm not arguing for a one world kind of religion. I hope I'm not arguing for a one world religion. I'm not asking for any religion. Please don't get me wrong. It's about, we have a spiritual connection to one source, I think, and that's got to be all we need to know, and all in terms of how we're one and we're together, and and that first and foremost grouping, if you like, needs to become how we're connected, rather than, I mean, this is why Pavlov was just trying to bang on about, and I did get a little short with him because I don't have time for a meeting of the ball earth brain boys. But he was trying to bang on about their history and say, well, we've always been violent, we've always been, clubbing each other over the head, essentially, as paraphrase. But I'm like, that's a history we've been taught for the last 250 years. We don't know, really, if we're honest now. We know Mudflood, we know Tartaria. We think we're starting to know a bit about Tartaria. We don't know who and what we were before. And to make those assumptions when you can see grandeur in the post or the pre-flood or the antediluvian things which are only a few hundred years old, perhaps. You see grandeur. You see the arts, the Mozarts, the Beethovens, the Sistine Chapel, all the stuff put to Michelangelo, and so this kind of work we don't do anymore. But we come from what seems to have been a grand time, and we're scrabblers. Even the millionaires and the billionaires, they're scrabblers. Everybody's scrabbling and trying to lord it over each other rather than it being any high society. It's bollocks. It's a dog-eat-dog pig fest. That's what humanity has become. And, so what we have to do is find a way of breaching those first or the inner layers of separation, so religion and color and so on. It has to be about bringing people together under that primary banner of one source. One source. I'd like to think that in time, enough time, perhaps some of these other key differences that we have will matter less. Because for me, it matters less that a brother thinks one way or another. His religion is this, or his belief system is that. I think that has to perhaps matter less to me, in order for it to be something that isn't relevant to having a relationship with him first and foremost, the government should be way down the pecking order. Me and my brothers and sisters in a room should be the most powerful force on this plane. But through the use of mob rule, they call it democracy, they have seduced sufficient of the foundlings to prop their corrupt system of banking and so on, corrupt system of control up. But it's much easier to do that when you feed the pigs are happy when you throw slop down for them every day, twice a day. Just enough, if you want to keep them fighting each other for scraps, even biting each other for scraps. Starve them out a little bit and you see them become pretty nasty. They'll eat anything. So, I think that's a pretty grim assessment of humanity. But there is every chance we were once grander, and now we're at our lowest ebb. Perhaps we've still got some way to go. I'm not sure. That's for someone else to decide, or something else to decide. I just have to be present with what I know, and continue to do best as I can what I think is right for me, this, us, and so on. Yeah, make no mistake, Flat Earth knowledge, awareness, awakening is alive and well, and if you've been part of it, you are definitely making a difference. Yeah, it's alive and well. But the bully boys are getting their armor up for sure. Be mindful of that. However, they've got nothing. They've got nothing. So really, what they can come with is bluster, and what we need is to see people who are able to kind of just hold it together and go and have a conversation with people about what's wrong with the things that we've taken for granted. Get out there, friends, and do that. In time, I think people will come back and go, okay, what else do I need to know? And by then you must be ready to be able to give them more than just Flat Earth. It's much more than Flat Earth. That's just the entry level to the game. We are the divine spark of some monumentally beautiful, divine entity, life force, energy. And it's all love. And within that is like this spark and this arc. And that's you. You're within that. And you are contributing to it. You're, in a sense, powering it, the life force of it. And that life force is either in the ascendant or in the descendant. Ultimately, I'd suggest we're trying to seek a balance between the upper and the lower, the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang. Not too far in the yin, not too far in the yang, not too far in the hot, not too far in the cold, the neutral, the balance, the green, the earth, the heart, your heart. Anyway, I'll gotta go, and I hope you have a super day doing whatever you're doing. Oh, and check out that, if you can, that content over everything stuff. Apologies for some technical issues on my side yesterday as well, but I think there's some great quips, where it's like, no ways, this is what the ball earthers are bringing.